Okay, so we're going to do number 3 here today with the sloping top of the cone. Um, we'll start with the base here. So I've already done this. I've taped my piece down just using my desk. I've got my T-square, put it on the edge. I put my piece of paper as close to my T-square as I can, just so I don't have the flexing of my T-square. Um, and for this one here, as we're going to start, we're going to need to do a little half moon down below. So with this one being 50 for the radius, I have to make sure that I'm above 50 on the bottom so I have enough room on the page. So I've just gone 60, allowed myself an extra 10 mil there. And I'm going to keep it as tight to the left as I can because I'm going to try to make the pattern coming off of there. So for this one, we've got the 50. So I've got my baseline here. So I'm just going to mark my edge of my page. It's going to come over about 5 mil. I'm going to mark my 50 and my 100. So that's how that is. We're going to come up 120 to the top, to the apex, and then we'll create the cone. So you really shouldn't use your T-square on the edge of your desk that way because your desk might not be 90. So unless your desk is true 90, then you can go that way. For this one here, I'm just going to use my 3060 and use it like this. Construction line should be light, but I'm going to try to draw a little darker for this so you guys can see. Just using my number 2 HB pencil. You should be using a 3H hardness for your construction lines and a 3B being blackness for your object lines when you're done. But I'm just going to use this pencil here. We're going to go 120 on this. Right at the top. Just a little tick will do. Just trying to make my stuff a little bit bigger. I'm going to make all my construction lines and everything a little darker here. Okay, there's my cone. We'll have to slope it. So we're going to go up 80 and then 30 degrees. So 80. Most things are usually measured on center, and it's 30 degrees this way. These are to scale, so there's my 30, there's my 30. So double check with that as you're doing the drawings. Put your drawing right up over top. You have to, just to make sure your angles are correct. Okay. Oh, that center line should have came down a little further, so we'll just make that a little bit further there for that one. There we go. I'm going to use my Stedler dividers here. These are adjusted quickly. It's nice to have 2 sets of these a little later on. Um, just it's nice to have 2 sets when we're not moving things around. So I'm just going to set this to 50 here because that's the radius. Looks pretty close. My measurements might have been just a little bit off. That's pretty close. Press a little hard. You can get different color graphite in here as well, harder black. Again, we're just going to divide that up. So the radius walks around the circle 6 times. So we're just going to come from here, make a mark, come from here, make a mark. So we're just dividing this half circle up. And we're dividing into 30, 60, 90. Just like that. Plumbers divide things into 8, and we divide things into 12. Plumbers like to do things into or so I said 8, I meant 16, 8 for the half, but they like to do things on the 45. So if we have to do something on the 45, we will. It's just that 12 is faster. So we're doing 6 aside. Okay, so we're just going to be creating the element lines here. Basically, I'm just creating a top view. So if I was looking down from the top of the cone, these would be the element lines that I'm creating. So these are just the number that we've selected. So I don't need to number these right now. Pretty simple drawing. There's not a lot of numbers here. Generally, we don't start numbering until our triangulation squared around. It gets a little more complicated. A lot more lines, a lot more numbers. Sometimes we use letters, but for this one here, you'll be able to easily identify which one is it. Which. Okay, so these are our element lines here. Everything always comes to the apex. Where it crosses the slope here, I'm just going to bring those out to the side. So that one is already there. Let's just bring this one out. Try not to lean over the camera here so I get my head in there. I'm going to use the other side of the T-square. I'm going to come out to this side because I'm going to try to make the pattern come off the sloping side just so I don't have to reduplicate things. So there we go there. So if you really wanted to, you can number these things. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then you can number these as well. So as they're coming up, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Make sure you have all of those. Okay. So I'm going to make the pattern coming right off of here instead of bringing it over. So sometimes just a little bit quicker this way. Lots of different ways to do something. So here we go here. Big arc, make things big. We're going to have to do some quick math here. Oh, it should be pretty easy. Obviously, we have a 100 diameter. We got 100 times pi. We'll go for full scale. Obviously, comes into 314. 5, 9, and these are in millimeters, so 314 is close enough. How much am I going to get 314 across here? Probably not. So what I'll do is a half pattern for this one. Otherwise, I can use a separate piece of paper. So let's go half pattern on this one because this is just the. Otherwise, I can use 2 pieces of paper. So let's divide this by 2. 157. Just trying to make things a little quicker here without 2 pieces of paper. So 157 is the magic number here for halfway. 156, 157, and then again, obviously, as accurately as you can measure will be the accuracy of these here. So there's a half pattern right there. If I had more paper up above there, I'd be able to get that full pattern. It's pretty close, but not quite. You can always tape a little something on there, I guess, as well. And then if I divided that, so half pattern, if I divided this by 6, I get 26 millimeters, and that's going to be the distance for each one. So you'll be able to step off for that one. So you can measure 26 on this one. 26. And we don't really want to work all the way along too far because we're going to get error. So what we'll do is we'll do a few this way. This will be center right here. And then we'll come down and we'll measure from the top. So 26 here. Always work in towards center just to eliminate as much error as possible. Also, you can always do the math. So you can go 26, 26, which is 52. And 52 will get you right on. And then you can add another 26 to get to center. So you can do the math that way as well. Let's bring these up. These are our element lines. And then we'll mark up this pattern when we're done. Use our snake. Again, where should our seams be? Seams should always be on our shortest side is kind of what we're looking for. So for this one here, we're going to call this 1. We'll call this 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So from there, 1's already done. Everything always comes off your sloping side. Here's number 2. Everything's always off the sloping side. There's number 3, 3 on the sloping side, bring it over to 3. 4 on the sloping side, bring it over to 4. There's 4. Okay, everything comes off the sloping side. Everything on the radial line always comes off the sloping side. There's 5. Bring it over to 5. 6. Over to 6. And 7, the last one. So it'll be the one that's furthest up. There's 7. And there it is there. So 1's down below. We use our snake here. Get it out of the package. It's a little bit warped. Just pull it, straighten it. They do have 2 different edges to them. One that's a little higher so you don't get ink or graphite on your page. You can always put a little bit of tape on the back side just to reduce smudging. So for this one here, again, you're just going to have to be finicky with this. There's 1, 2, 3. Not bad there. That's pretty close. A little bit off on the top. That's okay. There we go. So there's our half pattern. Now basically what we're going to have to do is mark this up now. Just got this out of the printer. Grading guide. So everything always goes in the pattern. So let's just go ahead and we'll put everything into the pattern here. So your name. So we want to make this as straight as possible. So I'm just going to put a few lines in here or something like this. Maybe I'll just try to erase off a little bit of the middle. Just put a couple lines here. Maybe a 1/4 inch apart or something like that. Things so they're clear. I always like to use my straight edge here when I print. And I know it just comes in straight. So your name, the date, project name. So it's April the 21st today. Put the year, 2020. Project name, so sloping cone. Drawing number 3. Working through the list here. Half or full pattern. So this one here is a half pattern. Okay, what else do we got here? I guess this is part 1 of 2. Well, it is a half pattern, so that's identified. So center line. So we want this seam here. This is going to be our center line that we're going to use. Because we want that, so we want the other half actually going that way. Bend lines and forming directions. So for this one here, we can pretend these are bend lines. You'd have to bend this as a full cone, or actually you would radius this off. You'd truncate it, and then you would cut it after you're done bending it. So what you would do is you'd actually cut this like this. And this would be a burn line. And this would be a burn line after it's formed. This could be a shear line or a burn line, depends what you have. This will be a burn line, burn line. We got a center line, which will also be a shear line and shear line. So for our bend lines, generally we use a diamond shape to identify the bend lines, and we'll talk about bending later, maybe in the shop project. Bending will be dictated off the top of the cone of the spacing of the V block. We're going to put bend lines on here. And then form up to what? So here's going to be form to, we're going to have a 100 diameter there. We'd have to check or do the math at the top to get the forming up here for that. So if that forming was there, or if it was the cone, I guess. So we could always just check, I guess, across here. So looks like it's about 27. So 27. So, and then we'll put a which direction here. And a little messy up here. It's a little full. Form to 27. Just get that up there. It's a little messy up there. I could probably clean that up just a little bit more. Working through, forming direction. So quarter mark. So is there a quarter mark halfway through? I guess this could be a quarter mark. Quarter marks are generally identified by two center pops. So you can identify that. So dark, we just drew all in one color, and light, so we just drew all in one color. Object lines should be straight and singular. Obviously, you can see them just a little bit off over there. So if I was marking this, that's some deductions and marks right there. Object line must match the template. So for this one here, we've got the template. And basically what we could do for this one here, which I've done upside down, would have to be this way. You'd have to put it up to a window and see if that matches there. So that's about the only way that you'd be able to, oh, I guess I could have came off this side here. So that looks pretty close. It's coming up. Yeah, so there we go. This one might have came up a little bit. Could have been a little more accurate there. You can see it's a little bit off. Basically lining this up over top and just basically seeing if all your dimensions are correct. So put that up to a window and then that should mark. So that looks pretty close there. So it's good. So there's your half pattern for number 3. And I think that's everything off the list. There was the how-to here, so there is some dimensions here that was on there, and then that's the number 3 there. So that's the end of that.